So, Danielle Natoni, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Me too. I feel like we've communicated over social media, but we haven't actually had a proper chat in a couple of years, no?
No, I just love that about you. No, we have not had a proper chat. I just feel like everything is just so much fancier when you say it.
That's good. I mean, I don't think that anybody from England thinks that with my Kiwi accent, but I appreciate that you do. So tell me, how are you coping in 2020?
2020 has been an interesting year to say the least, but I will say this. I am fortunate.
Hmm.
I was not affected in a way that hit me viscerally. So, what I will say is, I am coping just fine because I know that there are so many people there that were affected and hit and hurt in much deeper ways. And so, my heart goes out to those people. And all I can do is try to help, you know, as many people as I can get through it with positivity and an open mindset.
Yeah, I think I've been obviously talking to a few people in some of the other interviews that I've done. Even the people who recognize their kind of privilege and how fortunate they are to not be in a bad position, it still knocked everyone around, right? Like just your
Yeah.
expectations of what this year was going to bring have just been swept away, regardless of who you are or where you are.
I think it's just heavy. That's the
Yeah,
word I would describe this year. It's like all the compilation of everything, especially living in America, it's heavy.
right.
And yeah, as you're single,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
but that's a topic for another podcast. But I forget that there's that added layer of complexity where you are
yeah,
as
and
well.
it's just heavy. And heavy is heavy, no matter where you are, what your lifestyle is, or heavy is just that you can feel the weight of the world kind of pressing down on you in every moment of every day. And that's how I would describe this year.
Yeah, I think that is a very apt description. So, a lot of the people that are listening to this are going to know exactly who you are, but just in case people haven't come across you before, do you want to give a quick summary of how you got into fitness and sort of what you've been up to?
Sure. Hi, my name is Danielle Natoni, and I'm probably best known for my involvement in the Insanity Live brand. I actually came to fitness a little over a decade ago as someone who loved fitness, like always loved it, but just didn't have a career in it. I was an elementary school teacher looking for a secondary stream of income. Thankfully, I didn't know that group fitness instructors don't do it for the money.
Yeah.
And I got certified to teach my first format, which was Turbo Kick,
Hmm.
which was Shalene Johnson's program. I know you had Michelle Park on already. And so at that certification, I kind of fell in love with all things fitness. From there, I got certified in PIO, and then I just kept getting certified in everything I can get my hands on. And I still kind of live in that mindset today. From there, I did the at-home version of Insanity, went from fit to fitter, got asked to be a transformation story in the infomercial. On that set of that infomercial, I met who would eventually become my future husband,
Right.
and became really good friends with the creator of the program, Sean T. Uh, from there, he asked me to be in his home program, Insanity the Asylum Volume 2. It is
Hmm.
like the hardest home program
It
ever.
totally is. Well, obviously, there's nowhere near enough room in an apartment in Europe to do that program, but I have done it at
Yeah.
the Beachbody head offices in the gym there before, and it is tough.
Yeah. And then from there, that is when Beachbody acquired Shalene's company, Powder Blue Productions. And so they took over Hip Hop Hustle, Pile, and Turbo Kick. And at that same time, they thought, Insanity would make a really great group fitness format, which
Hmm.
they were correct. It was
Yep.
perfect for the group fitness studio. And so at that time, Sean asked if I would become the format expert and program director. So for the pretty much the 8 years that Insanity Live existed, I developed, created, and filmed those workouts taught to instructors worldwide. I also was a master trainer, so I would travel the country certifying people in that format. And Insanity just kind of became my baby. I always tell Sean he created Insanity, but Insanity Live was mine. But still to this day, I love fitness. Teaching group fitness is probably my favorite thing to do.
Hmm.
There's just something so magical about it. But I'm certified in, cycling, and I have my 200-hour yoga certification. And actually this weekend I'm going to get animal flow certified. And,
Oh,
you know,
cool.
yeah, anytime I love movement is probably the best way for me to put it. Lots
Hmm.
of people have different hobbies. And if you were to ask me what my hobby is, I would say it's moving. Like, I just love movement.
I
So
would have
here
said
I am.
learning as a
Oh, I do
follower of
love
you.
learning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Especially
do
when
love
learning and
learning.
moving get put together.
Yeah, when you combine the two together, it's like the perfect match. So still here, still teaching fitness. You know, I'm dabbling in it online. I'll be honest, it's not the same. It's just not. Like, there's a version of it that's cool, and there's a version of it that's, and I know it's where the world's going, but and yes, there's human connection, but you know, there's just still something so magical about that moment in time in the classroom. And I hope that at some point the world can blend the two together, where we can
Yeah.
still be really profound and virtual, but we can have our moments of actual, you know, coming together in the class. So anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's where I came from.
So one of the reasons, thank you for that, by the way. One of the
Yeah.
reasons I was so excited to have you on is that you have been a bit of an inspiration for me over the, I think, 8 years that we've known each other, in terms of your brand online, because you sort of have your own brand. You've been a representative of other brands, and obviously you work as a Beachbody coach, and you have Team Fit and Funky. So you work with, you know, hundreds of coaches across the country. I know you're one of the most successful coaches in that regard. But you also have developed a very authentic sort of personal brand online. And I've watched you do it over the years. And one of the things that there are numerous things that have struck me, which I'd like to talk about. But one of the things is the confidence and realness with which you present yourself online. And also, and we'll talk about this, and maybe it's a separate point, but you go through experiences where you learn new things, and you're just so open about trying something new and whether or not it worked. And you just have there's no second guessing saying that you got something wrong or that you tried something fresh. And it's just such a refreshing approach to social media. So winding all that back, because there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing I want to know is, did you always have such self-assuredness and self-confidence, which is always what I think of when I think of you?
Well, first of all, thank you. I take that as a immense compliment. Secondly, you know, it's interesting. I do get asked that question a lot. Like, have you always been this confident?
Hmm.
What I would say is, to a degree, I've always had confidence. Even in my lowest moments, I have always believed in who I am and what I'm capable of. With that being said, please also know I go through my moments of self doubt. I go through low moments just like anyone else. But at the core, I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of. And so there's never been a moment where I don't say the nasty things to myself that I know a lot of people, especially women, say,
Hmm.
because I know how damaging that can be. So, yes, to some degree, I've always been confident. But the other thing that I would say is every year, I probably step into that a little bit more. You know, for me, I'm turning 42 next month. And so far, the 40s have been my favorite decade of my life. And I think as you grow and as you age, if you do it well and you do it with a mindset of learning,
Mm.
you figure things out about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, and what's going to work for you, what's toxic, what's not toxic. You become smarter about just who you surround yourself with and the food that you eat. And every decision that you make actually kind of compounds that
Yeah.
confidence. So what I would say is, for anyone who maybe is struggling in the confidence area, it starts with some of those simple things, like, what are the foods that you're eating? What are the books that you're reading? Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? And every little decision that you make in that arena slowly starts to help you kind of step in that power a little bit more. And interestingly, I always tell people, you want to get more confident? Become a group fitness instructor. There is nothing that will really like let you stand taller, speak better than standing in front of a room full of people staring at you, waiting for them, you know, waiting for you to tell them exactly what to do, how to do it, and
Right.
all while to the rhythm.
And
So I
having to
also
fill the
think
room with what you're saying, because they're giving nothing at the start until they buy into you, right?
that's right. And so I really actually feel there is something to that fitness is kind of one of those things, not because of your physical body, but because of the spaces that it puts you in, I would say group fitness has really helped me shape my confidence in a way that allows me to show up more profoundly.
Right. And so the other thing, like leading on from that, that I think will be really interesting to a lot of people that are listening to this is that a lot of group fitness instructors have that confidence when it comes to standing up in front of the class, right? Like they've been doing it for years. I've spoken to a lot of people. And now, with all the changes that have happened, they're having to switch that into a confidence in a virtual sense, whether it's teaching virtually or creating their own on-demand content, or just stepping more into being a persona that exists on social media or online in a way that they potentially could have coasted on their interpersonal showing up real life confidence before. When you started to build your following and craft who you were going to be online, did you consciously think about it, or was it there a process you went through to become the confident kind of online person you are now, or did it come naturally? I'd love to know your approach.
Yeah, it's interesting. Social has changed so much over
Right.
the 10 years that I've been in the fitness industry. And I'm actually, and I know we're going to get to this, I'm in a space of redefining my relationship with social because of that. What I would say is when I started, the climate of social was much different. Certainly wasn't as heavy. It was nowhere near as divisive. Yes, there was negativity. There will always be
Mm,
negativity. There was negativity before the internet, right?
yeah.
Like it just wasn't, you just didn't see it as frequently. So when I started in social, I mean, you weren't posting 20 stories a day showing every moment of every like waking breath that you had. So it was very different. But I will say this, I knew from the beginning I wanted to be me.
Hmm.
I knew in the beginning I had no interest in being anyone else. I didn't care. Like I show up on my social now, and I did then most of the time with no makeup on, hair completely a mess, very blatant about the fact I've been wearing the same sweatshirt over my clothes for 4 days in a row, because that's me. And if I have to show up and pretend to be someone else, then why show up at all?
Hmm.
It serves me no purpose. If my goal is to get you to fall in love with me, right? I used to always say that if you would fall in love with me on the mic, you would follow me anywhere. Meaning that, if you took my class, you fell in love with my class, then whatever I posted, shared, did, you would do, right? And we all have had those, for those of us that have been around when you taught actual classes, we had those people who would follow us from studio to studio to event to
Right.
event. Why? Because they fell in love with you on the mic. But if you weren't being you and you were being this version of yourself that you thought you had to be, they wouldn't have felt that connection. And so that's how I felt about social media. You either love me for me or you hate me for me. And trust you when I tell you, I have that.
Yeah.
And I have the people who very blatantly dislike and hate me. And that's hard sometimes. But also, there's a saying that says, if I'm going to screw this up, but it's like, if you try to be for everybody, you're really for
For no
nobody, or
one. Yeah.
something to that effect. And so I just have known over the years that at the end of the day, I want to be able to rest my head on my pillow at night, knowing that I showed up as me. And if that means I lose followers, that means I lose followers. If it means I don't have as many followers as the person next door, that's okay too, because I know that if I show up authentically as me, then every night when I go to bed, I know that I did my job because why why get you to like me if I'm not being me? What purpose does that serve? Because eventually you'll catch on and then the relationship will be ruined.
Right.
And then all that work will have been for naught. So
We actually, the podcast that just released today, so it'll be a few weeks, it'll be the last couple of weeks podcast when this one comes out, but it's on kind of finding your strength as an instructor. And one of the things that I talk about with Susan, the guest, is that there's no point in turning up and not being yourself, because you just won't enjoy it, right? Like if you're going to do something, and we'll talk about this as well, but I know that you consider your superpower to be consistency. But if you're going to show up consistently, and by doing that, you have to, be present and engage, then there's no reason to do it in a way that makes you feel bad. And the only way that you can feel good about it is by being yourself, right? Because if you're constantly playing a role, it's extremely tiring.
that's right. Exactly that.
So one of the things that I love about your social media is that you are one of the people who I think is the most blatant about if I'm not for you, I'm not for you, and I'm not going to make myself be for you, which you just said, right? Like you have to define who you're for, and if you don't define who you're for, then you're for no one. Did that come naturally, or did you build that up sort of over the course of a few years? When did you get this? So this is not the confidence to be you. This is more, when did you get the confidence to be like, you don't like me? Fine, bye. Because that's sort of, it's
Yeah.
a very strong part of your presence that I just love and adore.
Listen, I would be lying to you if I said it's not hard. I
Mm-hmm.
would be lying to you if I said that early on I didn't shed many tears over comments, and I would be lying to you if I said I still don't on occasion shed a tear. Listen, the internet is a nasty place just as much as it can be beautiful and uplifting and one of the most probably significant things that we have to keep us connected. It also can be the most damaging, the most hateful, the most hurtful place for no reason. So, I don't know if there was a moment where I said, like, I'm not going to give a flip
Yeah.
at who likes me. What I will say is that I just started to develop thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean it doesn't permeate, because it does. But early on, I realized that those messages, you hear all this all the time, that hate is never about you, it's always about them. And, and some of it truly is ridiculous. You're like, they don't really know you. Like, they're just, keyboard warriors or trolls. And so I think I just really, what I will say is this. I don't know that if it was a moment in time, I don't know that it was a decision. I think it was just years of personal development, constantly fueling my brain with positive messaging. And in that, knowing that some of those things, hate is never about you, it's always about them. And also, why focus on the one negative? If you were given 1,000 beautiful comments, 1,000 people enjoying your messaging, you know that you've impacted them in some kind of way. You've made their day better. 1,000 people think that you truly are an inspiration to them, and one person says something
troll.
Negative. Right. So why give that all the energy? So I just think it was kind of like a gradual transition into, okay, I'm not going to feed into that. I'm going to focus on the people that I am positively impacting rather than the ones that I'm not. And you want to know what's funny? You're going to laugh at this. But sometimes if I have a moment, because we all do, where you're just like, you're having a moment, mm-hmm. I think to myself, do you know how hard it must be to be a Kardashian or to be J-Lo? Like, you think that they don't get, right? Like, think about J-Lo at the Super Bowl this year. Right? I mean, she puts on this beautiful, stunning performance of
the closing
so much
show
hard
of
work
the world.
Yeah, and then just the hate and the spew and I think in those moments to myself, if J-Lo can still show up and be J-Lo, I can show up and be Danielle. That small piece of hate, I'm not going to let affect me. I really think about some of the most well-known celebrity people who are having a positive impact on this world, and you think about the level of hate that they must receive, and they still show up and they impact us positively. And so if they can do it, I can do it.
I have a question that I'd love for you to answer on this. And that is, I think if you're someone who's super famous, then maybe you can just divorce yourself from the conversation. It still would be really hard.
Sure.
But if you're kind of a level down from that and you're wanting to grow your presence on the internet, there's so many resources for how you build your following, right? And all of those resources around building your following are engaging with people that comment on your posts. So I know for some of the people that are listening to this and they're kind of trying to build their following online, that they can't necessarily ignore the negative comments. So do you have any strategies for if someone says something negative on one of your posts, how do you deal with it? Do you ignore it? Do you engage? What are the strategies?
Block, delete, and move on. Listen, here's the deal. I give it no thought. I don't care. And I don't care if I misjudged you.
This is why I love talking
blocked you. Yeah. But because, listen, I wouldn't let you come to my front door and spew hate inside my house.
Right.
Even if you didn't mean it that way, I still wouldn't invite you in for dinner. It is your social media and your place of positivity and business. And so some people will be like, oh, well, you should still have banter back and forth with people who disagree. Maybe so, but that, for the most part, my deal is like, if you say something, there's a difference between saying
Right.
something in disagreement, but said with respect,
Yep.
that can stay all day. But if you're just nasty and negative, I block, delete, and move on. And I give you no second thought. You want to know something funny? I go through my social, who's following me on daily. And if I even think for a second you're a fake account, I block. You may have just opened it. I don't even give you the chance to be there, because ultimately too, I get to decide who comes into my house. Why should I feel bad even for a second? Like, why should I have that conversation? Like, well, they were mean to me. They were really rude, but should I block them, or should I give them another chance to show up and be rude to me? No. And so I also think we give a little bit too much weight to, ultimately, social is kind of like free space, right? Like it is showing up to other people's houses uninvited very often. And so you get to decide the rules. And I think we just give a little too much weight to, well, should I leave them there?
Right.
Are they positively impacting you? Have they been kind to you? No? Remove them. And
Excellent.
hopeful, because chances are, if they just were that quick to show up on your page and be nasty, nothing you say is going to influence them in a way to change that. And so my deal is like block, delete, move on. Life is too short to spend it wasting my energy worrying about somebody who doesn't like me.
I really love that analogy too, in that I think you can kind of, well, everybody that is building a following, often wants that extra like or wants that extra person there. But the analogy of, you wouldn't let them turn up to your house and be disrespectful. So why do you let them do it on your page? You own that. That's your conversation. You don't have to, if someone disagrees respectfully, then it's great to engage, because you don't want it to be an echo chamber. But at the same time, disrespect, gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we forget, and I'll be honest, I kind of miss social media when it was just, and I'm sure it was still it was nasty then, but I also think over the years, we've all become really entitled in how we use social. And I think when it first started, it was like, oh, okay, cool. Look at these pictures. I'm going to give that a like. And then you set it down and you moved on for the day. But now, since the advent of stories, I really feel like we feel entitled to know everything you're doing at every moment of the day, and you better update and tell me what's going on, and you better do it quick. And if I send you a comment or a message, you need to tell me what it is right now, because I somehow am like, I owe you something. And it's interesting because it's like, here we are giving out free content daily because we want to affect you in a positive way.
Right.
So if you're not receiving that messaging in a positive way, if you won't leave on your own, I'll help you get there.
I love it. So this brings me to a question that I've been wanting to ask you, because as I said, you inspire me in terms of how you treat your social and the relationship you have. And I'd love to talk about some of the redefining of the boundaries. But my first thing is that we've talked about this a little bit in messaging before doing this podcast. So I created Shift a few years ago, but people that listen to the podcast may or may not know that I've always had like a full-time job outside of the fitness things that I've been doing. I've also worked for Les Mills and Beachbody, and I always felt very confident with those because I believed in the product, pushing them out and promoting them and selling them because I really believed in them. The weird thing that I've had since I've been working full-time at Shift and not doing anything else is that it's a little bit of a personal brand, in that, I created it. There's obviously a team of people that contribute towards it, but I don't know if it's a Kiwi cultural thing, but there's a level of anxiety and lack of confidence that I have pushing Shift because I don't want to be salesy, or I get anxious about putting myself out there so much, which I recognize as weird, because obviously I created this from scratch. It's my baby when it comes to a product, and I believe in it more than I've believed in anything else, yet I'm more nervous about doing it. And I often worry about kind of the boundary between my public persona and my private persona. People send me messages asking about Shift, and I feel that I have to respond to them because I do care about them. How did you define the boundaries of where your sort of public persona and your accountability to the people that are in your online community begins and the private Danielle sort of ends, or the reverse of that. I think I got it wrong.
Yeah, I actually think that's another thing I'm redefining. If I could go back and turn back the hands of time, I don't know that I would have been so public about a lot. Like if you take me and my husband's relationship, people watched it from the inception. And so they love our love, but because of that have felt, entitled's not the right word, but they have just felt a part of it, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But also like there are times when maybe they feel they're owed, also isn't the right word, but like they feel like they're owed, like there's some level of like buy-in of like,
Yeah.
give me more info, like what's happening, they need to know. Same thing with my kids. If I could go back and turn back the hands of time, I wouldn't have plastered them all over my socials much either. Like the crazy world we live in. Also, it's like they should get to choose like how much or how little they're on social. So what I will say is early on, I don't know that I had great boundaries there.
Right.
I was in that space of feeling compelled to like, oh, I need to grab this, so let's put this on, or oh, they'll want to know this. Over the years, just like with anything, as I grow and as I learn, and I've become more confident in who I am and who I want to be, what I've realized is that I can share with you who I am as a person. You can know who I am viscerally as a human without you having to know like what I do on a Sunday afternoon. And that doesn't make me less real. It just means that, you know, there should be moments where I'm just enjoying the moment. Where I found myself was like, on a walk with my husband, seeing a beautiful sunset. And instead of enjoying it, thinking, I should grab this and share this. And that's when I realized that's a problem. So I do think it's hard to know, where does your public persona begin and end? And I think you just have to kind of set some guidelines for yourself. So I'm kind of working in reverse. I didn't have those set up initially, and I'm creating those now. So, you know, as you know, I've started something called Silent Sundays, and it has been the most beautiful thing I have done for my mental health and well-being. And that is to not engage in the apps at all. I do not open them. I do not look at them until Monday morning. And I just live life. And I will tell you what, no, you want to know what's interesting? The first time that I did it, hard's not the right word. It was just, you realize how addicted you are.
Right.
You
I've realized that quite recently.
Yeah. You realize how that in every quiet moment, your instinct is to grab the phone and to open it. After that first one, no. Matter of fact, there have been Mondays I have to remind myself, okay, it's time to get back on.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because it's beautiful. You forget what it's like to just eat dinner and go swimming in your pool, or to read a book, or to just sit in some quiet because you can. And to know that, you know, if you think about it, every business has days that they're open and days that they're closed.
This is a very good point.
Every fitness program has recovery days. Even nutrition programs built in treat meals, right? Because they know that you can't just go. And so why have we not applied that to social? And so I know that I did not do a great job defining my personal boundaries when I first started, but I can fix that now. So in addition to Silent Sundays, I've also chosen to not put my children on my social. You know, I'm a mom. You don't have to see them to know that they exist. And, you know, and that doesn't mean that if you put your kids on your socials, that's a wrong choice either.
Right.
But I think we feel pressure to, or like you must. And it's like, no, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is show up in a way that feels good and authentic to you. Darren's completely gotten off since for months, and he says it's the happiest he's been, and he's not sure if he'll be back, and that's okay, you know. So, but if you're building a brand, obviously you have to be online. So I would sit down and really think about it and say, okay, what are my like no social zones, right? So maybe for you, it's like, okay, we're never going to, you know, get on social or post about social at the dinner table. Or if we go on vacation, we can only upload, you know, 5 things at the end of the day. Like, I think you should come up with rules, and only you can define those rules. But if ultimately you're a fitness brand, you're a fitness brand.
Mm-hmm.
And people do want to know you as a human. That's how they'll connect to you. But if you think about it, when you talk group fitness in a class over the mic, you might say, oh yeah, I gotta go pick up the kids from school. But you didn't go, oh, and by the way, so last night for dinner, my husband and I had.
Or record the event as it happened or anything like that, right?
Yeah. So I think it's also kind of remembering you're in the business of fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're more than fitness. And so give them some of those pieces.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be your entire life.
So what I'm hearing from you, and I'm putting words in your mouth and feel free to disagree with me, is that, so for anyone listening to this who, is more or less in the same boat, right? This is for group fitness instructors. They're people who are giving to other people in the community. It might be in person, it might be digitally. They have a community that they service. That community is interested in them. And that's important because that's how you build your tribe and continue to positively impact more people. But I'm hearing from you that that something you've done is done an actual audit of, is it serving me or is it taking away? And then set up some specific times and boundaries and rules around how you will interact with this technology that we know has the ability to really addict us and to be a negative impact on our lives.
Yeah. Another thing that I did was kind of set parameters around, and I'm sure you've heard this, but in case someone hasn't, your social media should not be the first and last thing that you look at when you wake up and you go to bed, right? When you wake up, if that's the first thing you consume, that is not the best way to start your day. So similarly, it shouldn't be the last thing you do before you go to bed. And so I also have I do not do it typically until I actually got on very quickly to just say I was doing this with you.
I saw that.
But other than that, I haven't scrolled yet. I haven't really interacted because for me, I don't actually engage on social until I have taken care of me in the morning. And that means that I've drank water, I've read, and I've done my workout. Once I feel like I am ready, I'm in a good space for me, then I can take on social. Because let's just say you open social first thing every morning, and we just said social can be heavy. So what if it's a negative comment the first thing you read? That sets the tone for your day. What if something really heavy is the first thing you read? That sets your tone for the day. And so I also, shut it down. Once I eat dinner, that's it. Phone's done. And I put it in another room, because also you don't have to be on 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is to connect with humans in such a way that they will really gravitate towards you, and in turn will want more of your messaging, some of which is movement through fitness.
Yeah.
But your goal isn't to get them to become addicted to you.
Right.
And it's not, do you remember that movie Ed TV from back in the day? It's not that. It's not the 24/7, Will or Danielle show. It is you hear people say oh, you're only seeing people's highlight reel. I don't know that it's that. I think it's just that you're seeing a constant trailer. It's just little snapshots of their day. And that makes you decide yeah, okay, I like that person. I want to connect with what they provide in this fitness space.
Mm-hmm.
You're not promoting coming to live with you.
Yeah.
Right. And so they don't need to see so oftentimes people say, give me a tour of your home. No, you see enough of it through the background.
You have my favorite house on all of the internet, by the way. We've talked about this before. It's I cover it.
Thank you. But you don't need to see every intimate corner and detail of my home. That's where I live. That's my personal space. That doesn't mean that I don't want to connect with you on a very real level. It just means that you do see some spaces, and already that leaves me feeling very vulnerable. So I'm giving you pieces of me, but not all of me. And I think as fitness instructors, as just any personal brand on the internet, we need to be okay with that. We're giving pieces of you, but when we give you pieces of us, it's an authentic piece of us, right? It's us showing up as us, not trying to be or pretend to be somebody else.
And I think that it's interesting that, so I'm in the same place as you, sort of trying to reformulate my relationship with social media. And it's an interesting time to be doing it because personally, I've moved to a new city. I'm learning the language, but also it's such a weird time because I think that we are at the same time through lockdowns and all these things being closed, we're craving connection. And so I've been inclined to scroll on social media more than I did before because I miss people and I miss that social contact. And so I'm kind of searching for it there. But I recognized a few months ago that that the social media side wasn't making me happy, that I needed to do. So that in-person engaging is something that really makes my heart happy. And social media is something that I enjoy at times and that I do to promote my business. But I was using it as a bit of a crutch for the lack of social interaction that I was having else in other places. When did you decide on this change recently? Has it been a kind of during COVID situation, or has it been something you've slowly changed? Like, when did your decision to realign your relationship with social media happen?
It almost happened right at the top of quarantine. So I have known kind of deep in the back of my head, like I probably need to fix my relationship with it, but didn't. And actually, I'm a huge fan of Shalene Johnson,
Me
and
too.
she was doing this group, this like 30-day push group. She has something called push journals that I use, and it's this idea of these 90-day goals of like identifying what's the goal that you need, like a micro goal that you need to focus on in that moment. And so you go through and you answer these questions of, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 in different areas of your life, like finance and romance and whatever. And we got to the mental health and well-being, and that was the one I scored the lowest in. And so when I really unpacked that, I realized that it was social media.
Right.
And so right about when I'm like working through this group with her and like, what can you do to help that and this, that, and the other, is when quarantine happened. And honestly, I think it couldn't have come at a more perfect time, because yes, I will say that during lockdown, during quarantine, during this unprecedented time, technology provided a beautiful way for humans to stay connected.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, it also simultaneously addicted people to new levels. And while it was
I feel you.
levels, the information that was coming in from all areas was also extremely heavy, divisive, often not true. And so it became like at this very negative space. And so I feel that we all became more addicted to our phones. So I actually really, at the heart of lockdown, is where I kind of committed to all of this reframing and redefining. And I actually think you're going to find more people coming out of this needing that. And I don't know if you've watched yet Social Dilemma.
I watched it last night because I knew that this was a topic that we were going to talk about, and I thought I'm going to watch this. And I mean, I knew all that stuff before, right? Like none of that was new information to me, but seeing it compacted into that hour and a half. And also I challenged Max and myself to put down our phones and not check them. And like, I struggled to not dual screen at some point during it. Like I just wanted to go, has anyone messaged me? Or like the huge irony of struggling to watch a documentary about the addictiveness of social media during and wanting to check my social media during it.
Yeah. And there was so as I'm like redefining and I'm like, okay, I kind of called it like intermittent social fasting, right? No differently than people who intermittent social fast or intermittent fast during the day from a food perspective, right? Like they have a 16-hour fasting window, 8-hour consumption window. I'm like, oh, well, then maybe I can model my social similar to that. So as I started doing that and even implementing Social Sunday, one of my daughters was here this summer and she made a post, and she doesn't post frequently, but she literally said out loud, I hate that it bothers me how few likes or how many likes I get on a post.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you mean by that? And a girlfriend of hers had posted around the same time and had more likes than her. And she's like, I really hate that bothers me. It makes me question, did I look pretty enough in this picture? Like, and so when you hear things like that too, and this is a smart, intelligent, young woman who struggles with this idea of like identifying, like that the power of the like is so strong, not only for us, but for kids and the generation that's growing up. I really realized in that moment too, that like there is life beyond likes, and we have to really, like, social media, even from watching that, they say, they're like, we didn't intend for it to, like, the guy who invented the like button, he was like,
I know that he's bringing joy to the world. That broke my heart.
Yeah, he was like, I didn't intend for it to cause depression, suicide, like self-confidence issues, but this is where we're at. And I think it's kind of like, you can almost relate it to like the food industry, right? there was a time when like everybody, no one really thought about GMOs or
Yep.
whatever, and Monsanto and all these different things. And then slowly over time, right, like people started to basically like take back their food and
Yeah.
really like advocate for, you know, non-GMO and organic and healthy and pesticide free and responsibly raised. I kind of think that's where we're at with social. I
Yeah.
think we're in a space of we need it. It has beautiful power, but also with that beautiful power comes the negativity, and I think we need to take it back. And so if you are a fitness instructor, I think right now what happened was you felt called to be online more than ever.
Yep.
And I actually think that a lot of fitness instructors harmed the fitness industry long term at the top of quarantine.
Yeah, by
giving
just
away
giving
everything for
away
free.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate, that's not something that I've actually discussed on this show, but I completely agree with you in that. Like, I understand why people did it. They wanted to get their brand out there. They wanted to keep connected with the people coming to their classes. They wanted to make sure they were servicing everyone. But like all of that stuff for free, like people don't value what they can get for free, right? And I think that, like, I know that a lot of the boutiques that I've worked with when I was at ClassPass and now are having to reframe that conversation because they gave away so much for free and it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Just like, I guess it's not sustainable to give away so much of your own self all of the time. You know, you can't drink from empty cup. Is that the right saying?
Yeah.
I mangle those sayings as well, but you know where I'm going.
Yeah. So I just think, you know, I came to a space at the top of quarantine, you know, that this is the world we live in, and this is probably the world we live in for a while.
Yeah.
And this could be a time where I become even more addicted, and it would be even harder to pull back after. So instead, I'm going to do what's hard and I'm going to pull back now. And I think it has been the best for me, emotionally, mentally. I also think too, when I come back online on Monday, I'm excited to engage with
Mm.
people, right? I have a newfound energy, like I'm ready, instead of feeling like, oh, I have to get on, or, you know, even now I'm kind of dabbling a little bit in virtual fitness. And because I didn't do it, like, because I felt I had to
Mm-hmm.
right from the start, I'm choosing to now. I'm excited, even if there's not that many people. It's like, oh, this is fun, like, because I chose to be in that space. So I also think it's important for us to remember, as it comes to social context, just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean you have to. And I think that urge is very real. Oh my gosh, everybody's, you know,
Yeah.
posting their free classes. I'm going to miss the boat if I don't jump on and put up all my content on IGTV right now. And so you feel like this overwhelming sense of like, oh my gosh, am I doing something wrong if I don't do what everyone else is doing?
Mm.
But it's okay. You know, you can show up in the space and in the time where it makes sense for you.
And so you have started teaching virtual? Have you redone the gym? Like, I know that you were doing some renovations. Is it like, what am I seeing
Yeah.
behind me?
Oh,
You
this
look
is
to be a
this
house
is our
tour.
wall in there inside of our gym room. Yeah, I've just started dabbling. You know, I don't know where I want to go
Mm-hmm.
with online fitness. I know that, you know, I'm dabbling with virtual right now just because I wanted to make sure I didn't lose that ability
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
cue and talk and speak and move, you know, without being like
Yeah.
on the mic. And also, you know, dabbling with like, you know, what does that look like? Do I plan on teaching every day, you know, 30 minutes to an hour a day, like with full packed virtual schedule? Probably not.
No.
You know, would I love to have my own program? Maybe, but is that hard trying to figure out how to do that in the context of like the other space and industry I'm in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of, you know, so I don't really know. I just know that I wanted to be, I do feel that teaching, cueing, all of that is a skill, but it's a skill that has to constantly be practiced. And
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
out of practice too long, just like with anything, it takes a minute to get that endurance back.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's more of just a space of like making sure I'm not letting my skills kind of
Yeah. Staying
atrophy.
sharp, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's your experience been of it? So we'll link to your virtual studio so that anyone that wants to take a class with Danielle can take it when the next one is, not necessarily every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how have you been finding it? Because I know that it's it's not easy, right? And I think you talked about at the top of the show, like it's not the same as being in person. What's your experience been?
Yeah, so I have been testing
Feel
this
free to be
platform called,
completely honest, by the way. Like I'm
yeah, I
not
will.
pushing people into virtual and saying you must do it, but that's because I care about people continuing their careers. It doesn't mean I
For
don't
sure.
acknowledge that it's different.
No, for sure. And listen, I do think that the fitness industry is forever changed.
Hmm.
I don't know how or when it will come back. So I do think virtual is important. I have what took me so long, to be fair, is I didn't want to do it over Zoom. I didn't want to do it over Facebook or IGTV. I was like, okay, if I don't do any of those, like I wasn't interested in like coming up with my own. So I found this company. It's newer. It's called Moxie.
Oh, I
And
know Moxie.
basically,
They're based out of
yeah,
Germany, no?
oh, I don't know, maybe. But basically what they did was they took, it's almost like Zoom,
Yep.
except every person that gets on, it doesn't degrade the video quality, right?
Right.
And
And there's
so,
no delay because that's the big problem with Zoom, right? Is that it's almost
correct,
impossible to not have that fractional delay between the video
correct.
and the audio.
Yeah, so what I like about it is there's like a warm-up room. So if I have a
Hmm.
class, we can get on and chat a little bit beforehand. So there's that interpersonal connection.
Yep.
And then you do class. They partnered with Feed FM. So if you want to use, you don't have to, but if you want to
Right.
use Feed FM, then it just plays into your audio and their audio. Also, no delay or sound
Right.
degradation.
Do you teach
And
to the
then at the
music? Are you doing music-based classes
no,
or
no, no. So
music as
far, I've been most
motivation?
yeah, music
Yeah.
is motivation. Because if you did it like to teach the music, you'd want your own mixer and like
Right.
to
Yeah.
pull in. And then at the end, there's like a cool down room, same, you can kind of chat. And then of course they do, you can put up your schedule. Obviously they take a little percentage. But the other piece that I like about it is I'm also of the mindset of I teach fitness because I love it. It's not my mainstream of income. So
Hmm.
I want the least path to resistance. While I understand for some people who fitness is their mainstream of income, they can't afford to take away those little percentages for convenience. But
Yeah.
for me, the convenience is important to just be able to like turn on and go. I also like that people pay for me, not for the entire platform. Meaning
Hmm.
if you like me, you subscribe to me. You don't subscribe to everyone on the platform.
Ah,
So there
right.
are a
So
lot
so
of,
it's not an aggregator. It's just they come
yeah.
on and they use this. So we'll put a link to this in the show notes because I think that all of these resources, like all of the different strategies people are using, is super interesting and worth looking at.
Yeah. So, and they're also new, and like their CEO, like any issue I've had, he fixes it immediately. Like they're really
Right.
receptive to change. So in that way, it's been good. I like that the video quality is clear. I
Hmm.
like that I can see people, but yeah, it's different, right? Like in order for me to come check your form, I've got to stop moving and
Right.
I've
Yeah.
really got to come into the
Yeah.
right. And if I don't ever say your name or check your form, then I may as well do on demand. That's how
Yeah.
my mind works, right? Like if I'm not actually interacting with you in the moment and being like, oh, Will, you look amazing. Your form is great. I'm proud of you. Keep going. If I'm not saying that, if I'm just staying back and moving the whole time, then why am I not just putting out on demand content,
Yeah,
right?
which
So
you could do,
I
right?
do,
Like,
right. So I think too, you have to decide as an instructor, what do you want? Is it that you want to just put out content that your people can connect with? Or are you wanting that like
mm,
in the moment connectivity? And if you want that in the moment connectivity, virtual, it's a challenge. It just
yeah.
is. It's different. But because if you are like, so for example, like with PIO, I imagine it'd be very hard for Michelle to stop flowing and moving. I know like when I teach yoga, I've been teaching yogas on Saturdays. I know that for the most part, if I stop flowing and moving, they stop. So I don't really
Mm,
get that personal. Well, I'm teaching like HIIT. I can stop and move and get in the camera and be like,
yeah, right.
oh,
You can be like, right, you run on the spot and I'm going to come up and.
but also people don't adjust their camera angles each time.
Yeah,
So, okay, I
yeah.
can see you when you're standing, but if we go to the floor, I don't see you
We
anymore.
did a
So,
shift release that was all standing up because we had instructors that were like, I just want one class where I can just be interacting with them the entire time.
yeah. So it's just, it's, I won't say that I love it and I won't say that I don't love it. I'm in a space right now of like, I don't know, we've got to explore, right?
Mm,
Like, this is the world we live in. chances, in my personal opinion, that's my personal opinion. This is not research backed or
Yep.
anything. In my personal opinion, big box gyms don't come back anytime soon, if ever. Right. In my
Or if
personal,
they're going to come back in a different cut down low timetable way, and many of them are at risk of not opening again. I think that we can just I think that New York Sports Club, the news dropped today that they're in administration as well. You know, obviously Gold's got sold, and then 24 Hours had its own
24.
issues. Like it is tough times, right? It's very tough times.
Yeah. So I think, if like for me, I used to always love teaching at a big box gym. It was easy, like big
Me
crowds,
too. I
like,
love turning up and them getting the
yeah,
class there. Like I didn't have to do any of the marketing. I would just
yeah,
be a good instructor and I could just
yeah,
turn up, teach my class and leave. I really like that.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know that that's happening anytime
Mm,
soon. I think very boutique studios will survive. Yoga studios, like small, intimate. I think those will survive. But even still on that, like they'll have what, a handful of instructors per
mm,
boutique. So I just think right now there's so much unknown. There's so much like just kind of up in the air that as a fitness instructor, you kind of have no choice but to explore.
yeah, I
Like
agree.
which platform makes the most sense for you? What do you like? What do you not like? Is it teaching virtual live in real time that really like feeds your soul? Or is it creating on-demand content and then just having a forum or a group to connect with your people? What does that look like for you? I think we all just have to explore and test with it, because let's also be honest, fitness is incredible. We all got into it though because we love it. And so it's not like because while it can be a lucrative source of income,
Oh, I think we
oftentimes,
can be honest about that and just be like, like
yeah,
instructors put in a hell of a lot more than they get like
yeah.
monetarily, right? Like maybe they get more community and happiness, but no one becomes a fitness instructor because it's a high paying job.
So if it's not bringing you joy,
Yeah.
then why would you do it? So that's the other piece. Like, it's kind of like there have been moments where I knew in my career, like I was teaching too many classes, or like that gym or format didn't serve me, because you started to lose joy. You started
Hmm.
to dread going to that class or
Yeah.
prepping for that class or heading to that gym. And so I think you've got to just be cognizant right now too. Like if showing up live to two people and you can't really see them and like it just feels clunky, that doesn't bring you joy, then you need to explore a different option for doing that. And so right now I'm just like, I'm in a joy exploration.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going
It's a
to
good place
bring
to be.
me the most joy? Yeah.
And the funny that you mentioned this, because I think the one thing that speaking with hundreds of instructors about their experiences is that whether they're doing it live stream or on demand, the most important thing that instructors are doing right now is actually just providing the community. It's the Facebook group that they have or the interaction that they have in the community space where they talk before and after. It's really the thing that people are craving, and I think is the one thing that instructors can bring their authenticity to, because the reality is that, as you pointed out, so much free stuff went out there. There's so much opportunity to, like, if you want to train, you can find free content that it's fantastic and it'll do it, but that's just all it is. Whereas if you're an instructor, then your real ability to connect with people and build a community is by doing the stuff around the outsides.
For sure. Totally agree with that.
So that, I think, is a great place for us to finish up. But before we do, I just wanted to ask, I know that you're a voracious reader of content, whether it be self-improvement or learning. I always see these things. Are there any recommendations you have for anyone any content, be it any type of content? So it could be a book, could be a website, could be a course that you've done recently that you think would be a really great thing for our listeners to explore.
I'm currently reading, which is why it's so top of mind, this book Limitless by Jim Quick. And Jim Quick is kind of known in the space for being like helping you learn, knowing how to learn and how to be just that, to be limitless. He works with a lot of the world's top actors and celebrities to help them memorize their scripts. And I will say that about halfway through with it, and the content is just so good, because we all need that right now. We all need to let go of any limiting belief that we
Mm-hmm.
have, right? Maybe you have a limiting belief as it relates to how to show up online, or that you can't still, your fitness career won't continue because whatever. So a lot about unpacking limiting beliefs, a lot about, just how to learn, how to move forward. So that has been really great. I'm also just a huge Shalene fan, especially for anyone who is in the space of like creating their own business. So if you're not like also listening to her podcast or kind of following her, tips for just social media and building a brand, I think, she's just done such a great job with that. And here's the other thing I'll say about learning. I also think learning is personal, meaning I could recommend a book to you or a podcast and it won't serve you. And I'll give you a great example of that. Like, I'm not a huge Rachel Hollis fan, right? But every girl under the sun thinks she's the best thing since sliced bread, which is amazing. I'm so happy that people are able to connect with her and her message. For me, I'm more of like a Jocko Willink kind of girl, right? Like, I love like that idea of extreme ownership. So I also think as it comes to learning, whether it's podcasts or books, be okay with starting a podcast and turning it off, or reading a book and going, nope, not for me. And then finding the thing that really is going to like feel good and make the most sense for you, kind of in the space that you're in. Like, what do you need most right now? Do you need help with social media? Do you need help with confidence? Do you need help with building a website? Like, what is it that you currently need the most? And then just kind of do a little digging on your own of like, well, what might be the thing that will help you get there? Because I could recommend all the books in the world to you and not any of them might be what you need to hear in that moment in time, because personal development is just that, it's personal.
So I think that's a fantastic place to finish, because that brings us full circle. As when you were saying that, I realized that I'm now interviewing you on a podcast that I started. The reason I got into podcasts was actually because on one of your social posts, like years and years ago when we first met, you made the point that you'd stopped listening to music when you were doing a certain thing because you were using that space for podcasts. And I was like, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that too. And since then, I've got fully into podcasts and I use it for my learning. And now I'm interviewing you on my own one. So with that, I would thank you for all of the great advice that you've given everyone that's listening, and the great advice that I've sort of stolen from you over the years. And I look forward to having another conversation again about all the other stuff that we could have talked about today and didn't get to. So thank you very much, Danielle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I love what you're doing. The group fitness world is better because you're in it. So thanks for that.
Cheers.